The bottleneck. You have a new phone with a camera that is 1,000 megapixels on front and back, the front and back camera. The bottleneck is you're just going to look at it on a small laptop screen because you want your laptop to be light. You remember when laptops, people wanted the biggest screen they can get? What was that, like 5 years ago? Anyhow, the bottleneck is you're taking these massive pictures, but you're looking at them on these tiny screens. The bottleneck for audio is you can have like digital connections and you can have badass headphones and whatnot. You're still listening to an MP3.
The Umbrella Corporation. Our business is life itself. This podcast episode is brought to you by nothing.
Try it for free.
What got me thinking about what I'm about to tell you is that the movie Snowden came out tonight. And it was released in 800 theaters. It's a film by Oliver Stone. If you don't know who Snowden is, I'm amazed that so many people don't, actually. But if you don't know who Edward Snowden is, he's a guy who disclosed for 100% certainty to the American people that everybody was being spied on at all times. There was speculation about that. If you said anything like that, let's say 6 years ago, less time ago, people, including people in my peer group, would call me crazy, but they would call you crazy. Some strange conspiracy nut if you assumed that the government was spying on people at random, or like everybody. Of course, people who pay more attention to technology have been putting two and two together. And now, of course, the people who used to make fun of the people who believed that everybody was being spied on, now we're like, yeah, well, I saw it all along. That's what they say. So, yeah, you kind of knew it. You kind of, yeah, man. You know, we all do that, I guess. We all like reinvent our past to make it more, how do I put it to you? To make it more incongruent, more in accord with who we are today. Because we've all been different people. I've been a different person. You've been a different person in the past. You change and you grow, and hopefully you do. Hopefully you're different from how you were when you were in high school, etc. So we're at a time now where those kinds of things are kind of permanent. Like for somebody who's growing up in junior high right now, they're in social media and these things are permanent for them. They're going to be around for a long time, maybe, if they remain accessible, if they don't get lost in the haystack of information that is the internet. But Snowden, the release of the film Edward Snowden is what got me thinking about this today. Not that I don't think about it other days, but today I was thinking about it. If I just tell you this straight on, I don't know if it'll go by too fast and you won't see or notice the immense change that it implies, which is enormous if you've lived through it and you've paid attention to the things that I've paid attention to. Now, I don't know, about 20 years ago, for certain, 20 years ago, maybe even less, a little bit less than that. But for sure, 20 years ago, people were so private about their lives, about themselves, that they did not want their phone number, their landline phone number, listed in the phone book. The phone book is not searchable. You have to actually go and pick it up and look at it and then find the name alphabetically. And some people just had their names and their number. Some people didn't even have a name. They just had a number, I think. or they just had a name but no number. Some people had an address and their number, or a P.O. box. It works something like that. But people's names, you were listed on the phone. I think you had to pay to be unlisted in the phone book, in the white pages. So we go from that, people actually paying money to be unlisted in the phone book, to letting it basically all hang out there, like in social media. And going from a mentality like the one that I'm describing 20 years ago to the mentality of today, to where people are kind of more or less okay. They're okay enough with like the government spying, or in corporations like Facebook and Google spying on on their phones, and who knows, a slew of other apps that there's too many to name, but more and more of them owned by these big companies. There's a cyclic oligopoly complex in effect there. Cyclic oligopoly complex. I have a blog post about it. So there's that, and people are okay with this. People are okay with their data, with their data. All this information being taken and used and manipulated and visible to other people. They're okay with it enough that they don't riot in the streets. Now, is that a bad thing? Is it a good thing? This is what's debatable, right? Because not being able to be seen has its pros and its cons, and being able to be seen has its pros and its cons. Like, I'll give you one example. Being able to be seen, bill collectors can come after you. If you happen to do something illegal, you can't really hide anymore. There's people from the IRS and companies that are looking at people's Facebook pages and busting them on vacations and when they claim to not have any money, et cetera, et cetera. A downside to not being seen is that if somebody who knows you can't find you, like somebody who wants to find you, somebody who maybe who loves you, maybe who lost contact with you or lost touch with you, they can't find you. Let me see, what other downside is there to not being able to be seen? Not being able to be found so easily. I can't think of any right now, but I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure there's some. I'm sure you can think of them and tell me how great the system is as it is right now. And again, I'm not saying that it's good or bad. I'm just saying that to be spied on does not feel good for most people, unless you're into that kind of thing. So that's clear, for me anyway. I'm pretty sure a bunch of other people feel the same. To be private, to be able to remain private, feels great. It feels good. You feel, if there's dignity in it, there's like some dignities removed with we don't have internet at home. There's some dignity that we've gained, actually, believe it or not. Just because this outside world is not so invasive in our house. So we have our phones, but we don't have data on our phones, or if we turn the data on, we're going to pay for every megabyte that we use. So essentially, we don't have the internet at home. So the pros and the cons. Let's see, the pros of having social media is you get to connect with people. All the opposites, I guess. You can look at people's photographs. You can see what's going on in people's lives. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? I'm sure it's great, and then there's a point where it has diminishing returns, and I don't think humans are good at navigating and determining where that point is, because especially in a society where our philosophy is if it's great, we need more and more of it. So yeah, it's not working out it didn't work out for me anyway, because my life is better. Like, let's say, for example, my life is better without a Facebook. And people who have a Facebook, I don't think that they can say whether or not their life is better without a Facebook, because they don't let it go, for any period of time. I don't think they do anyway. Do people take breaks from it? I don't know. So there's, getting back to the overall arching topic, in my own experience, in my lifetime, people were hiding themselves from the phone book, which is a physical phone book that you have to search through alphabetically. If you can find one, you pick it up. To now, everybody's letting it all hang out. And then I was at, is it a good thing or a bad thing? So here's something very important. Just because something is new, a technology is new, doesn't necessarily mean that we should go that route with it. Just because it's possible, just because you can, doesn't mean that you should, you know? And here's something else that I make, even amongst people who are considered intelligent among their peer groups or whatnot. But they're not as smart as I, right? Like, that's what some people will think that I'm thinking. So the people who worship technology, and I see this like on podcasts of famous podcasters out there, they're like technology worshipers. But the people who do this, they assume, it's like they're like under the assumption that this happened through a course of natural selection. And you can look at it in a way, like if it did, but I don't see it that way. It's not objective enough. Because people like this, like the ones that I'm describing, this mentality assumes that these things happened organically, like the technological advancements happen organically. And that even the things that the cavemen were striving for before they had a wheel, their ultimate idea was us, to become us, when they're maybe not even related. Like, we act like it's a continuum, but it's not. From the caveman to us. Like, we all had the same philosophies and ideas about life. When even the Native Americans rejected like Western technology for a long time, you know, like hundreds of years. So people act, there's a mentality that I see a lot out there where people are assuming that these technological advances and the direction that we're going happen organically because it's the natural course of evolution, technological and human evolution. When in fact, it's a company that's making a decision based on what's going to benefit them. And it's not necessarily geared towards human progress, but in a way, like, it shapes human progress and what that's going to be. Like, do you think, like, Native Americans didn't care about the technology of the Europeans, even though the technology in the eyes of the Europeans was far superior? I mean, they had Gatling guns, which they beat the Native Americans with, right? So aside from war, war is a special case where your technology will determine who survives and who dies. You know, aside from war, as far as choices in living and lifestyles and what's healthy for you and what's not, Native Americans were not interested in what they had. You know, they found use of rifles and they found use of horses, which is kind of a new technology, if we can look at it that way. But there was a limit to what they liked. They had a pretty great life. Many Native American tribes, men, had great lives, amazing lives. I'm talking about, like, they had been around in their environment for so long that as they moved camp throughout the year, they made their round, they had the dopest, awesomest views. You know, over like thousands of years, their tribe had figured out where to stay. This covers the rain, like these rocks above. This cove covers the rain, this cliff, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's this other place where there's a great view of a lake or a river. But the technology, I hope you don't mind my speaking style. It's kind of long-winded, but it's kind of long-wound. Take the long way around in a spiral. But it's going there. It's just very rich. It's getting there. So it's a mistake to make that assumption. I think it's a mistake to make that assumption. I think it's important to become aware, to be aware that this is not an organic process that's happening, that it's actually companies that are steering the future of mankind. And when I say steering, I mean all the way to the priorities. And right now we're at a place technologically where companies can read your thoughts, basically, so they can steer you at the thought level. Think about that. Consider this. And people say, if there's one thing the podcaster Dan Carlin taught me, was that something I had never thought of before, was that nothing in history is inevitable. That whenever anybody tells you that such and such thing is going to happen, it's inevitable, that's never true. It's not true. So it's a pretty difficult thing to grasp, but I seem to be into those kinds of things right now. Difficult things to grasp, that is. So we're being steered, some of us more than others, many more than others maybe, at the thought level. And who are we being steered by, and for what motivations are we being steered there? Maybe we have, right now, you could take a look at it like we're either the masters of our destiny, because we can communicate with people right away, but because other people can read, like the NSA and the corporations that you're using, other people can read these communications and hear them and see them, that we've never been less the masters of our destiny than we are right now.